Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost reproductive health services to women in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off of the reproductive health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Helen Nguyen, CEO and co-founder of 3W Medical for Women and the host of today's podcast. Hi, Wellness Wednesday listeners. Thank you so much for joining us again on another podcast sponsored by 3W Medical for Women. Today, we're talking about a lovely topic called self-care, right? It's a buzzword that a lot of us are using, millennials especially. And what does that actually mean? How do you do it? How do you even approach it? Sometimes it's very overwhelming for me. So today I have Lauren Wooding, our office manager, and Taylor Worthen, who's going to talk about how they do self-care. Because to be quite honest, I don't even know how to do it. And they're going to laugh at me about it a lot. So let's go ahead and let's start with Lauren. She wanted to read something.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I was just prepping for this podcast and was scrolling on the good old Instagram and found this beautiful little paragraph I thought would be fun to start the podcast with. This is by Brianna West, and she does a lot of self-care books and things. So she says, the deepest form of self-care is building a life you are in love with, and that is often a very unbeautiful thing. It means making a spreadsheet of your debt and enforcing a morning routine and cooking yourself healthy meals and no longer just running from your problems and calling the distraction a solution. It means looking your failures and disappointments square in the eye and re-strategizing. It is not satiating your immediate desires. It is letting go. It is choosing anew. It is disappointing some people. It is sacrifices for others. It is living in a way that other people won't, so maybe you can live in a way that other people can't. It is becoming the person you know you want and you are meant to be. Someone who knows the salt baths and chocolate cake are ways to enjoy life, not escape from it. Ooh. Which I think is a really good spot to start, because you hear self-care and people think face masks and chocolate cake and taking time for yourself, which it is, but I think a deep form of self-care is doing the hard things that don't always look pretty on Instagram and actually go to the root of why we need to take time for ourselves, which is sometimes to heal through trauma or overworking or, our lives just being crazy. And that's not always just eating some cake in a bath. It's doing therapy that brings things up, or working out to have a healthy body, or eating healthy things. So I thought that was just a nice little paragraph to start off with.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I like it.
Is that something that you do and resonate with, Taylor, when you do self-care?
I think I've gotten better about self-care as I have just simply grown. I think it's really easy to neglect yourself in college, especially because you're eating such garbage food. Your schedule is pretty inconsistent in the fact that you have weird class time. So you're probably working and studying at weird hours. And then you're also every quarter or every semester, it changes. So how can you really get in a rhythm when there's consistently a shift in your schedule? Right. But yes, I would say that self-care, if I notice when I am not abiding in self-care, when I'm eating like garbage, I'm not working out, or I'm not moving my body, what else? I know that I'm partaking in self-care by, honestly, like you said, Lauren, doing the hard things. So every once in a while, I need to just go to counseling for a mental health check. And I know that we've talked about that here in other podcasts, that if you're going to elevate the importance of the physical, you should also be elevating the importance of the spiritual and mental as well.
Yes.
And so when I am doing these hard things, it is self-care. Cleaning my house, believe it or not.
Therapeutic.
It is therapeutic. And seeing that kitchen sink, completely empty there's something that just warms my heart and I can listen to a podcast and do it. But when my house is a wreck, you should probably ask me how I'm doing, because the chances are I'm not doing too hot.
Right.
Yeah. So it's so much about spatial self-care, not only just with bodily self-care, right? And it's, I guess you can do, like you said, like you can do the big glass of wine at the end of the week, or the nice chocolate cake, but those are just kind of like one-off,
like Band-Aids almost.
Snippets.
Like it kind of, that those are like comforting and feel good in the moment, but like are they in lasting like a peace for yourself and recharging that other things that go deeper are.
Can they be starting off points?
I think so, because I think different personalities can kind of transition to self-care easier. I think people who are workaholics or people who are givers and just want to constantly give outward and not help in, it's hard to start taking care of yourself and prioritizing, because you feel like it's selfish and you feel like you have all these other things we need to deal with, and that's way down on the list. So I think letting yourself unwind with a bath, or letting yourself unwind with a glass of wine, or whatever it is, can kind of intro you to, okay, I can take 2 hours of my day and relax. And maybe the bath turns into journaling, turns into waking up 30 minutes early and doing some movement. I think it can be a good introduction to taking that time for yourself, because I know other people take time, or other personalities and different personalities take time to get to that space of, okay, I matter, and I can help myself. And I think a huge thing too is, they always say you can't give anything if your cup's empty. Like you have to fill your own cup up first. And I think that's so easy to say, but what are we actually doing? That's practically filling up our cup.
So what are some practical ways that you do self-care, Lauren?
Yeah. I think a big thing for me is I find a lot of peace and enjoyment in working out, but waking up, I commute to work. I have to get up early, and it doesn't always seem fun to wake up at 6 a.m. and work out before. But I always, and sometimes I open my eyes and I think, wow, this is not a day I want to get up. But every single time I constantly show up for myself and do that workout afterwards, I feel so much better. And it's more, it helps my emotions and my mental state. When I'm driving to work, I'm in such a more positive, perspective.
You did so much.
Yeah. And I'm just, I just feel like I've given that time to myself and I can give to others now. I'm a big giving, Enneagram 2, if you know what that is, we're literally called the helper, and my work is so much about helping others and giving others. So I think it honestly, subconsciously is you are giving yourself that time. No one else is awake. You wouldn't be spending it with your family or your boyfriend or your coworkers. You're going to just be with you and connect with yourself and pour back into yourself when you're going to pour out to others. So I think that's huge for me, and just helps my mental state be so much more clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Taylor, other than cleaning your house, and I know you dabble in essential oils. We had a whole podcast about that. So check that out if you don't.
Good.
Yeah. So what else do you do for self-care?
Yes. So something that I have been doing lately is I have found that for some reason my level of anxiety and stress went up. And there are environmental things that have caused that. But what I can do for myself to implement self-care is, honestly, I do not look at my phone, social media, things like that, because it's so normal, right? Your phone's by your bed. You're going to roll over. You're going to be on social media for an hour before you even wake up.
Right.
I don't look at my phone until I have done something in the morning to bring me peace. So that can either be reading something, that can be listening to a podcast. So I have to wake up and begin my day in a way that is not inclusive of my phone. And then equally to sandwich that, I have to end my day, maybe the last 30 minutes, maybe the last hour, no real screen time. So lately that has actually made me feel way better, way less stressed. And I think it's because I'm able to enjoy the present moment a little bit more. I've also lately, I forgot how much I like reading. And yet lately I've blown through a number of books. And therefore, I'm not watching, and I'm not just turning off my phone, watching so much TV or screen time. So again, those are kind of harder decisions I've had to make, but they are turning out to be actually really fruitful. I I hope that I can continue on, but it's really difficult. I mean, there are, even this morning I woke up and I looked at my phone and I was like, whoa, I'm not doing this right now. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I think another thing that my husband especially can tell when, in a sense, it is self-care. But since you mentioned your Enneagram, Lauren, I might as well mention mine, in that I'm a 9, so I'm a peacemaker. And so sometimes self-care can be like actually, in a sense, advocating for myself, like telling my husband or telling my friends or my family, like, hey, I want this, or I don't want this, or we were going along with your idea and suddenly it doesn't feel right for me. And so that can, speaking my mind or making a decision in my life that I've been putting off, can sometimes be a sense of self-care for me, because I think I have this excellent tendency to shove. I don't even know that I'm doing it, but other people know that I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, those things aren't natural to you, but doing them can help you have overall peace, even though it might. And I think that's kind of a common theme of, it's easy to scroll on your phone. It might be like mentally a little harder to be, okay, I'm going to pick up a book, or I'm going to listen to like a podcast that's going to invoke a lot of thought. But the fruit of that is so much more peace and worthwhile time than just an hour of scrolling on Instagram. You don't remember it. You don't take any, I mean, unless you find a really great quote like I just did. But really,
but then you scroll past it, or you screenshot it, and then you forget about it.
And would have I saved it if I wasn't going to record this podcast?
Yeah.
Probably not. So, these things we do all, an hour a day, and there's no benefit to it. Not saying sometimes it's good to just shut off your brain and do that, but are you doing it every night? Are you not taking, and then you're, lacking on the other side of self-care by avoiding. So, yeah.
So self-care is a much broader definition than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
When I hear self-care, it's very hard for me to understand what it entails. Personally. So it feels kind of like what you mentioned, Lauren, of like, there's so many other things to do. There's so many other people to take care of. The world is falling apart with a pandemic. I mean, there's so many things to take care of. Self-care is usually the last thing that we
think about.
That we do for ourselves, but in a much broader scheme, bigger picture kind of thing, it enables us to do more. It enables us to serve more or be more present.
Yeah. I think that the common thread that self-care has is that it's almost like the shutting away the rest of the world, in a sense. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard someone say self-care is going on Instagram for an hour. Self-care is watching like the news for an hour.
Yeah.
Like no, it is the process by which you are like shutting out the rest of the world to like to kind of like look into the crevices of your mind and your heart and your spirit to figure out like, okay, what's been going on here? Yeah. And I think it's a very healthy and intimate time that you get to have with yourself. And I know that can be uncomfortable for some people, but it's so necessary.
So can self-care be overindulged?
I mean, I think you could. I think if someone's in an unhealthy state and they are justifying everything they do for themselves, well, it's self-care. I think you can easily justify, well, like, I'm getting ice cream tonight because I need it. It's self-care. I'm having wine tonight. So I think if you're neglecting other parts of your life or your health because you're saying it's self-care, I feel like that would be an overindulgence, especially like if you have responsibilities and families. But I feel like the average person probably is doing the opposite. They're probably caring for others more, especially as women. I mean, we are expected. Caretakers. We're caretakers, and that is so much of us are called to that. But we're also expected to, if you're a mother or a wife, you take care of the house. And obviously everyone has their own dynamic, but kind of the baseline is you take care of the kids, you take care of the house, and you have your job. And so I feel like majority of the people, it is, I'm giving to others and I'm lacking on self-care. And so I think you can overindulge if you're justifying unhealthy habits and calling it self-care. But I would say most people just don't take care of themselves enough. And it's on the other side that people really abuse, is like just not taking care of yourself. So
that makes me think about, 3W and our services, but the patients that we serve, you saying like time.
Yeah.
Right. Just like our 1 hour appointments. I feel like that's allowing some folks for self-care because they're not rushing through an appointment. They're not rushing through some sort of like uncomfortable healthcare conversation. They could really open up and self-care.
Oh, for sure.
Would that fit into that?
Oh my gosh, totally. I mean, I think going out of your way to do a preventative visit is such a version of self-care because it's not like you need to. Nothing's wrong with you. You're just making sure everything is going well and there's nothing that could be caught early. And sometimes that's hard of like, oh, an hour of my day, like I'm busy. But yeah, totally is that self-care. Especially our providers talk about the spiritual, the emotional. We care for the whole patient. Even just last week, we had a patient who really just talked with our provider for a good 45 minutes because she was struggling and we couldn't help her on some things today. We needed to push it off for a week later due to some circumstances. So she just got to confide in her situation, her health situation with our nurse practitioner, Christy, and left. I could just tell leaving, she was so grateful for that. And sometimes you just need that. You need to talk. And we don't discriminate on what you need from an appointment. If you want to talk to Dr. Rutherford and pick her brain and see how we can advocate for you, you can take that hour and do that, which I think's very one in a million almost of like healthcare places. Not many places are going to do that for you.
Yeah. So Taylor, how does one start self-care if they would like to implement? Like what's something that should they start writing some things that they would like to do down or talk to someone?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the first step in any good self-care regimen is probably to identify the fact that you need self-care. And when does this usually happen? Well, it usually happens when everything in your life is falling apart and you feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not doing all these right things, and it's a very self-deprecating position you probably put yourself in. And you're going, and perhaps you come to this state or someone has helped you come to this conclusion that, well, yeah, for X amount of time, however long that is, you've basically been running around, you've been all this stuff, you've been neglecting yourself. And so you've come to this point, and I think, gosh, everyone's so different, right? But the way that I have started self-care, because I've come to this point multiple times and then I've had to restart, is that sometimes you have to start learning how to say no. Because when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, and that something else is typically yourself. And so you have to start saying no to other things. I mean, obviously you need your priority list. What can you not cut out of your life? Like we can't just quit our jobs and, take a sabbatical, but so there's priorities. You need to definitely prioritize in your life. Okay, what can I cut out to make time for myself? What do I need? And so forth. And you start from there. Okay. If you don't know what specifically to do for self-care, I think that comes from just experimenting. Lauren, I've tried the workout thing. I'm just not that person. Like, I'm going to be honest with myself. Like I should be moving my body. Do not get me wrong, but you are up at 6 a.m. You are in the gym. I've done that before. No, thank you.
But yeah, like that's okay. I think it's like, I don't think my way of doing, you know what I mean? Like I tell people I love working out. Find what you like with working out. If you like to take walks or do YouTube, ab workouts or whatever it is. I love going to the gym and lifting weights and being kind of challenging myself in that way. And I find a lot of joy in that. And I think if you're doing a workout you don't like to do, you're not going to stick to it. And that's in any self-care thing. If you're doing the self-care and it's not filling you up, don't do it. Obviously we should exercise for our physical health, and there's a balance to that.
Sure.
I know. But at the end of the day, it's not healthy if it's making you more stressed out and give you more anxiety.
I think you got to start with what are you naturally doing? So something I naturally do that I love and I would consider self-care is I love cooking. So I will get up in the morning. I don't like getting up early in the morning, but I will do it with the excitement of I'm going to make a big breakfast. Not that I'm going to overindulge in that breakfast myself, but like I get to make it for other people. I cook probably 4 times, maybe 5 times every week. And and I'm doing it naturally. I'm doing it every day. I like cleaning, so I clean a little bit every day. Sometimes I sit on my couch and I stare at the wall, but but yes, I mean, so maybe start off with what are you maybe doing naturally, or what are you drawn to that it would be self-care? And I think that as you just get to know yourself a little bit better, some of those things are going to start coming up, like, this sounds fun. I want to do this. And it will come. It's going to take time. Yeah. But it will come.
Yeah. I think doing things that are naturally, you're inclined to, like Taylor was saying, with cooking and cleaning. But for me, I took my last quarter of college, I took an art class, and I found out I love to, I've never been creative before.
Yeah.
And all this drawing, I didn't like it. Watercolors was my jam. I would color these flowers, and it was so fun. And I was like, gosh, I'm away from my phone. And this was like the beginning of the pandemic, and you're on your phone all the time.
Yeah.
And I was watercoloring, and I was like, Josh, my boyfriend, I love doing this. I think, like, challenge me to do this like once a week. And that was something I would have never thought would be like something of self-care. And I love to I'll journal, and then I'll do some watercolor on the side and make it pretty. And that's like a fun creative thing that I don't view myself very creative. So it was cool to tap into a creative outlet that I never knew I was going to like, or even be a thing until this class. So I think starting with those things that you naturally do, and then be like, well, I'm going to try to journal. Never done it before. Doesn't feel good. Try something else. I think it's or I'm going to try to watercolor. I'm going to try to do a walk at night, or whatever it is. So challenging yourself to do that would be cool.
So we're talking about a lot of individual self-care. Can self-care be done with your friends, with your girlfriends, with your mom that you haven't talked to in a week because things are crazy?
Yeah.
Can self-care be done with other people?
Oh, yeah. I feel like sometimes, like, some of my best forms of self-care is sometimes confiding in others what I may be going through. And they can, from a third party or outside perspective, can help talk me through maybe anything I'm experiencing in that moment. And so I feel like inviting people is, if that, there's a place and time for that. There is the individual, that self-care that you absolutely need. But then there's the other part where you're inviting others. So, girls, we probably like to go shopping.
Yeah.
It's a great way to do self-care. Or, getting your nails done, all of this stuff. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of room to invite others into that dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, me and my mom will work out together in the morning, and it's fun to do that together, but we're doing our own thing, but we're in the same room together, and we get to drive there together and drive home together and talk. I think knowing what you need, because sometimes I need to be with others to recharge or connect with people, and I feel alone. Sometimes I've been with people all week, and I really just need that alone time. So I think self-care is whatever you need in that moment, in that week, in that season. Sometimes I see my friends more than other seasons, and that's because of the circumstance I'm in. So I think it definitely can be done with other people, but it almost has to counter what you need in a way. If you're always giving to others, maybe the challenge is being with yourself. If you are like my best friend, she is very introverted, and it's a challenge for her to always hang out with people and be extroverted. So her challenge, it's easy for her to be alone and take that time. It might be harder for her to connect with friends and do a coffee date with a friend. So her challenge might be pushing herself into that social way. So I think it's kind of what you are lacking or what you need in that season.
Okay. What if you identify someone in your life, in your community, in your family, and your friends that they've been running, they've been going at it, and they look like they need some self-care that they just haven't identified. What's a good way to approach them? What are some good things to say to them? Because, sometimes people think, well, I have no choice. So self-care sounds like a very privileged and spoiled thing to say to someone that feels very called to what they're doing, or very, very passionate about what they're doing. How do you approach someone in a gentle way to remind them, hey, have you taken any time for yourself lately to not, get a reaction that might not be what you intended it to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if that is the case, you should ask them, just asking them, how are things going? leaves a lot of openness for them to tell you what is going right and what's going wrong. I think if sometimes you also need to evaluate, is this a season someone is going through? Are you just going through a season right now that it's hard, it's challenging, you need to push through? Or is this like a lifestyle you have built that is continuous and it has no end in sight? And so, you know, identifying which of the two it is, but if it's a lifestyle this person has built, I think that if the relationship dynamic is appropriate, just challenging them, like telling them that you are scared they're going to crash and burn. Everyone's bandwidth is different. Some people are more capable of taking on more than others. And so being able to identify that, one, in yourself, and then two, in others, like, please do not compare your self-care to someone else's. That's probably the worst thing you can do for yourself. Yeah. But you know, just having these honest conversations. But at the end of the day, that person has to have an honest conversation with you and themselves. Maybe you need to see that friend, family member crash and burn a little bit and then just be there when they need it. But I mean, that's one person's opinion. What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, I think framing it of I love you and I care about you, and kind of what they say, like, would you talk to your friend that way, the way you talk to yourself? You know, sometimes we to ourselves will not give ourselves as much grace. So I see Taylor working super hard, overextending herself, and I see her and I say, Taylor, I think you should focus on yourself, take some time back, maybe cancel some plans and take some time for yourself. And she might not have that selfless viewpoint for herself. She thinks, I need to give. So I think if you can frame that for someone, it might spark in their brain, oh, I can take that time for myself. I can say no to this plan. And I would love if someone did that for me, because I don't always give myself that grace. And I think, yeah, like Taylor said, appropriate relationship, knowing what they need and knowing that person. But I think it's definitely validating that, yes, you work really hard. Yes, your life is busy. And I'm not trying to disvalidate that you're passionate, like you were saying, and it is hard to do that. But try 30 minutes in the morning when you usually would sleep in, or 30 minutes at night when you usually would watch TV. Because it really is, if you think about our day, there's times we can fit it in and kind of help them find practical ways to fit it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much. Didn't know self-care was so broad. So that's such a great thing to clear up for me personally, actually. So thank you so much. And thank you for bringing up these great examples about what self-care looks like, what it feels like, how to approach it with other people. And I hope that for our listeners out there, that 3W can be a part of your self-care. We're part of your community. We care about you. We care about you from a holistic standpoint, which means that, you know, healthy comes in physically, mentally, spiritually, and whatever else you want that to look like. So we really hope that you add us to your self-care routine, and that you find the space that we provided here for you, and the providers and just the staff that you interact with affirms that healthy lifestyle and that self-care that you want for yourself. So, all right, ladies.
Thanks so much for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more information about the services we provide, book an appointment, or make a donation if you'd like to support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you like this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.